Today we're going to look at some map edit commands, and these are sort of getting into the optimization point of the map. We're down to our last, less than 2 weeks at this point, and we're going to start doing some things that kind of set up the map to be finished. And so one of those things is running a command called map edit, and it allows us to actually manipulate a few things within the game rather than within the engine. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open up your map in Hammer, and we're going to go ahead and compile and run the map. All right, so that's the first thing you're going to do. You're going to open up your map, and what I want you to notice here is that I've got a couple of physics props hanging here in the sky. Now, this is a drastic example of what we're going to demonstrate, but one of the things we're going to do is we're going to use a command to update the position of all the physics items once they've done what we call settling. So when the game initially starts, all of the physics props in the game will suddenly get switched on and have physics settle them into the world. So if they're a little bit off the ground, or there's two of them touching, when you first load the map, every single physics object in the game gets its position and its physics calculated. And that can cause a lag spike. You can actually see it happen on some props, and it just looks weird when you load a level and all the objects in the game settle right before your eyes, because they shouldn't. They should already be settled in the world. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow the game to settle and position all the physics objects where they would be once physics grabs them. Then we're going to update that position into the editor, and it's going to save that. And you'll see it's actually kind of neat how it works. So I placed these two stools. These are two physics props. They are off the ground, so they are obviously going to move. But that's for demonstration. You probably don't have floating physics objects in your game. So I've got these two physics objects here. I'm going to go ahead and run it. So these represent every physics object in your game. So I'm just going to do a regular compile. All right, so everything loads up. Hammer is still open in the background. Okay, so that's important. Let me go ahead. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our console, and we're going to type in map _ edit space, and then the name of the map that you're working on. So in the upper right hand corner, right here, it says the map that I'm on. Mine's called keypad because this is the map that I built the keypad on. But it's whatever your name of your map is. So it's going to be map _ edit keypad. Press enter. And then it's going to reload, and you're going to be in kind of this weird mode. Now, don't start clicking your mouse, because we're also in node graph editing. So if you start clicking, you're going to place navigation nodes all over the place. That's what I just did right there. So a left click places it, and a right click is going to remove it. We'll talk about those in a second, but just if you start trying to click things, you're going to be dropping nodes all over the place. Now you'll notice these two chairs, they fell into position. Okay, so that's good. Now what we're going to do is we need to update the editor. So the command to do that is it's a long command, so I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it into here. All right, so the command is hammer _ update _ entity space prop _ physics. So what this is doing is Hammer, the editor, is still open in the background. In fact, if we go to the editor right now, it looks kind of weird because all my menus are locked out and you can't do anything. Excuse me. That's because the engine and the editor are currently talking to each other right now because I'm in that map edit mode. So once I type in hammer update entity prop physics and I submit that, now if we go back, you'll notice that those props are now on the ground because the position of all the physics props in the entire map were just updated from the engine to the editor. So the engine took all of those settled positions and it passed that information over to Hammer. Now, if you go back and edit your map, you have to do this again. And it only takes a second, so it's not like a huge issue. But we would also want to do it for our prop physics override. So if you've got a bunch of prop physics override, you would probably want to issue it for that as well. Okay, so that's step one. So what that's done is it's updated the physics location of every single prop in the game. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to walk around. Now if the AI is running around and they're shooting at you and stuff like that, there's a few commands we can issue in here to stop that. So one of them is AI_disable, and what that does is actually I just re-enabled it because it's like an on or off switch. So AI disable will shut off the AI in the game. Another good command is no target. What that does is it makes it so the enemies won't target you. They won't try to shoot at you while you're running around trying to, fix the map up. So now, the next thing we're going to do is we are currently looking at our node graph navigation for the AI. And if you press the J button, you'll see those green lines appear. Every time I tap the J button, it turns them on and off. So that is my node graph. That's my navigation for my map. Now you'll notice if we look around here, there's a lot of holes in my navigation. So like if I look down this hallway here, this guy has no navigation information. So I'm going to take and left click, and I can create some nodes. Right. Now let's press the J button and it rebuilds the node graph. Now if you put one like, see this one's got a red line, I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to move it back a little bit. And let's see if that works better. No, it doesn't work there. Let's try moving several of these. That's better. All right. In fact, I think I'll drop one right there too. Okay. Now remember, these aren't paths that they follow. They don't run from node to node. Like I could go from here to there. The nodes simply provide navigation information. So the way they work is when the AI is walking along, they see these nodes and they can interpolate or kind of guess where they're going to go. Like if I want to get over here, it knows that it can walk over here because there's nodes all over here. There doesn't have to be a line connecting it, but the AI will know that it can come into this general area here because we've got all these nodes. Now, if there's an area with no nodes out here, they wouldn't really be able to navigate that unless they were chasing you or a monster or something like that. Same thing if this hallway had no nodes in it at all. The AI is going to have difficulty navigating through there. So what we want to do is, remember, we're going to place these nodes, kind of around corners and then maybe down this wall here. We don't have to, they're not stepping stones. That's one thing you got to remember. They're not stepping stones. They're simply like points of navigation, like places you can go. Oh, that's the edge of my map right there. And then I'll press J. That looks good. And then I can kind of just scatter a few. Now, obviously, this is just a giant, big, open map. So, the navigation on this map is kind of lame because there isn't really a whole lot to do here. But what you're going to do while you're in this edit mode is you're going to come around and you're going to look for areas that are isolated from the rest of the map. Like when we started this hallway was isolated, so I dropped a few in here. And you're just going to left and right click, and it's going to add the nodes to the map as you're doing it. It adds them right into the editor. So, I'm going to add these things. I'm going to go around, place them in areas where they might navigate to. Pressing J occasionally to let the node graph rebuild. And I'm looking to make sure that I've got pathways everywhere I want to go on the map. When I'm done, I'll probably do one last update on the, there's the bell for brunch. I'm going to do one last update on my physics props, just in case anything shuffled or moved. And then that's it. I'll quit. Now when we go back to the editor, you'll notice all your buttons are back. My physics props have updated their position. They're sitting on the ground. And if we go over here, you'll see all those nodes that I dropped in. Now, of course, you still want to put in your info node hints for things like doorways and all that. So what we're doing in the map editing part is we're going in and we're fine-tuning. And we're trying to, look for areas that are problems within the map. So we're not putting our entire node graph in from the map edit mode. You still want to go through and look for doorways and things like that. Remember on these info node hints, we have hints here for like pinch points and stuff like that. So we want to, where was it? I just saw it. Entrance, exit, pinch. If you look back on the lesson, it's quite a while ago, but we still want to do proper placement of info node hints around doorways and things like that. So what we're doing in the map edit mode is we're kind of just looking for holes in our node graph that we need to repair. And so that's what I did here. I was missing something down the hallway. I placed a few over here. So hopefully on your map, it's not that bad. The other main thing here that we're doing is we're settling all those physics props so that we don't get a big lag spike when all the physics props drop in the beginning of the game. It also makes noise. The physics props make noise when they drop, so we don't want to hear that at the beginning of the game. So now, once you've done that, now we're going to go back and we're going to go to the physics props and we are going to check Start Asleep on the physics props. And what that does is we've settled them, right? So these are in their physics settled position. Now we're telling them to start asleep. So what that means is their physics will be shut off until interacted upon by another object. That way, these guys now cost nothing. They don't cost any CPU power for calculating physics or anything because they're settled, their physics are turned off, and they're in the right position, and so they're good to go. So you want to do this on all your physics props. Once you settle them into map edit mode, you do the hammer update entity and you settle them. You're going to come back into the editor and you're going to go ahead and go to flags and you're going to click Start Asleep. And this will settle all your props. And then at the beginning of the game, if we rerun this map, those two stools will be on the ground in front of me. And they won't have to drop like they did before. Okay. And there's still physics. See, there's still physics in there. Still play with them. There's still physics objects. But only because it's settled, and they also are asleep. So that means something has to touch them before they react. All right. Check teams for the assignment, and that's it for this one.